Is we're gonna rap in a podcast with a purpose. I'm Chris Cooper here with Alex and Flizzo. Here we say more in 30 minutes than others do in 3 hours. Now for our wrecking or rapping segment. Call me Paul Blart or Bret Hart. No, wait, that's a false start. Buddy, the problem is bubbling piled upon them. One at a time, I'll be popping them. Evil users usurping your mind. Corporations charging your time. Be like me. If you want to be free, check out the hook. Just don't look. Just don't look. All right, wrecking or rapping, you must choose one.
Rapping.
I liked it.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm going to go with rapping. But I don't understand the Simpsons reference today when last week the Ben would have benefited from that.
Hey, we can always throw out a good Simpsons reference. But that's just an important one for today. We're going to be talking about controlling the narrative. And I'm going to be saying a lot of wild stuff that can have an effect on my life by posting it on the internet. So the Shakespeare I chose was Hamlet's famous to be or not to be monologue. You guys have any familiarity with that?
Yes.
I just know it's a lot deeper than that every TV reference lets you think it is.
Yeah, and people always like to say that the Lion King is Hamlet, mostly because the uncle kills the father, and that's about the only comparison I'd say that there is. It isn't really much like that. And here, Hamlet's basically deciding, should I do something about this rotten uncle? And so he's going to say, like, should I fight him? Or, well, he'll say to take arms against a sea of troubles, but then something bad might happen to you. And then, well, is it actually good for something to happen? Because in death, what is there? And that, but there's a fear in that. So I'm getting into it now. It's about 2 minutes long. So have yourself a drink, I guess.
Do you have a skull to perform it with?
That'd be a good one. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache, and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardel bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to the other that we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied over with the pale cast of thought, an enterprise of great pith and moment. With this regard their currents turn away, and lose the name of action. Soft you now, be all my sins remembered. There's a line of the conscience does make cowards of us all. It reminded me of Fry saying time makes fools of us all.
I always like that line from Fry.
Yeah. And also, so in here he talks about shuffling off his mortal coil. I always liked that as well. That would be our body, the mortal coil. So all this, me now getting into my stuff. Why do we need to get rid of Drake? Well, he's a representative of a bigger problem. Industry plants. We have allowed these pansies and pussy willows to grow in our garden. Like when I said the difference between Loki being the face of the MCU and who Marvel wants the face to be, the industry doesn't want strong men. They call it toxic masculinity. That phrase is propaganda. For a decade, I've seen the media say men like me are a problem. Now I'm raising a daughter and supporting my wife in her career. I can say for certain this ain't toxic masculinity.
So, are you saying them supporting Drake is against masculinity? Is that what
Yes,
I'm getting?
I'm saying Drake is not a masculine symbol. Um,
Gotcha. All right.
as Kendrick even said, I believe you hate women because they pose real competition for you. And I would
Hmm.
someone who is displaying or being a true man, I suppose, would stay then in manly lanes and is then not going to end up in competition with women. But Drake doesn't do that. And that's why he's, I don't know, been compared to Taylor Swift. He's pop, he's not rap. And that's why he's got no street cred.
Well,
But
does one need street cred to be a rapper? I guess not, seeing
no,
how
but
Drake is one, but
I think there's this cutthroatness that the street cred just lets everyone know you already have. But I do want to ask, what do you think about, because with the toxic masculinity, uh, Chappelle has talked about black men in a dress. Have you ever seen or thought about things like that? That
uh yeah, I mean I've seen it obviously with well several different artists like Tyler Perry or like Martin Lawrence and stuff like that. Uh but I've never really put it together like I've seen in the past few years, especially like in the past few months, like what Cat Williams has been talking about. But I guess there is something to it where once you once people get to a certain amount of success, it seems like that is a that is a step they need to take, which is strange. If you add it up, it just kind of it's a weird thing to happen all the time.
yeah, for me, it's about, well, in the dress specifically is about the celebrity sort of bending the knee, and then it's, well, to who is making them all do this. But for my view, it's larger of sending this message that, I don't know, we don't want strong men, and that makes sense. Well, it also makes sense that they're not even in the media, because we'd watched Parks and Rec recently, and Ron is this famously like the tough guy, but they're all actors and writers, so artists. They don't really know what a tough guy is, so he becomes a satire of a tough guy, and it's just what they've imagined one is.
Yeah, I mean he's close to being a regular tough guy, I would say, for the
Well,
most
there's a
part.
lot of that character that is also that actor. Like he does own his own woodworking shop, and he I don't know if he makes his own scotch, but he's at least teamed up with a scotch company recently. So like
Yeah,
there's
we
a
have
lot
his
of the Ron
scotch.
Swanson character that is the actor that portrays him.
Yeah, but I guess the question is, what is masculinity, and
Mm.
why would somebody shy away from it when you're a man? I guess.
Well, if you're being told that it's toxic to act that way, that would be one reason to shy away. Um, but that's what I'm going to keep getting into, is all these propaganda elements that are put forth to say that, like, oh, you shouldn't act this way. So last week I mentioned Ludwig von Mises' Socialism, a scathing takedown of communism. Von Mises is an Austrian economist, and Austrian economics is popular with crypto bros. And crypto bros is another example of propaganda. They're called bros to make them sound stupid. Like, just hanging out with my bros, studying global economic theory in the Casa de Clubhouse.
But
But
well, some of them have earned that title,
the bros, well,
crypto bros, and others with that cryptocurrency and that kind of atmosphere does lend itself to some pretty decent ideas where a decentralized currency and everything, but it also opens up the field of just people there for a scam.
Well, yeah, I was going to
And
say with the street cred and that there's this cutthroatness that there's all this money going around. So you're going to have people that just want to scam you. And if you don't have street smarts, you're going to get scammed and no one feels bad for you. And I don't know, I think that's a part of masculinity as well. Of like somebody gets hurt, you're like, hey, that's the game. Like I got hurt. You're going to get hurt. Toughen up, walk it off, rub some dirt in it.
yeah, like getting into an argument, fighting over it, and just being done. Just like, all right, I mean, I lost. That's
Yeah, it,
that's the way it is, and then moving on. There's that, but I guess it's also being on the lookout or being observant of different scams or different pitfalls of life.
yeah, and I mean,
I assume
that's
that's
like
part of it too.
live and learn. So like you have to learn from these things, but I think also a part of masculinity, like we said, when you lose, you accept it and move on. I mean, yeah, you should definitely learn from it, but you shouldn't go on the internet and attack a person's character. Like that's a way that people end up working now. Is like I don't have the physical muscle to approach you face to face, so I'm going to do a backdoor method and work against your reputation rather than your physical being.
That or they just shoot them now. So
Oh
there's
yeah.
that. You can't physically fight, so you just get a gun and shoot them.
Yeah, I mean, what happened to the old glove slap? And then at least in that case, we're 10 paces face to face.
Yeah, I mean, just throw hands, just fight them, and
Yeah,
one on one, and to get your point across.
and that's all.
Not
That's like,
promoting it, but that if
but
it comes to
and
if it's that serious,
and it can
I might as
also work though, and because it prevents people from shooting each other. Like, all right, just fight it out, and then you're just gonna get that energy out. Because part of it is also just testosterone, and it drives you crazy. That you want to rage. So you fight, you get the sweat out, and then you shake hands and move on.
and
Yeah, but that requires people to accept that they lose.
Yeah, you don't
And
think they
that's usually
can?
where the problem has. Yeah, it's
no,
people that, because of
Well,
whatever the
yeah.
world believes masculinity is, if they lose, they feel that it's like a direct
Mm.
attack on them. So then they have to then shoot the person that they lost to.
I've heard that the like with lions, when one loses the throne, he loses like 70% of his hair, his mane. So it's just
well,
hard
yeah,
to
it's
accept
stressful.
loss. Yeah, yeah. For those that think toxic masculinity and crypto bros are just words that come up naturally, George Bush would say nuclear. You may think he has a funny accent, but he is sending a message that this is clean energy. It's clear. All right, so now we're up to the Alex's Wreck of the Week. Have you prepared this?
I don't prepare nothing.
Well, all
I
right.
don't know.
Well, have
The
you
only
thought of
like
one?
I,
Or
I I was thinking about this, but I remember last week you said my rec is supposed to deconstruct something, but the only thing that
sure.
I could think of to be annoyed about right now is seasonal bugs and ants and
Uh huh.
like well, so it's been almost a year since I've lived in this house now, and at the same
Wow.
time last year we've learned that we get tiny ants in the kitchen, but not in a swarm of ants. Just every now and then I'll see one, but I
Scouts.
have a Pesty, which is a year subscription for bug repellent, which is coming like with this week. And I know it works because it killed them all last year. But right now, this week, I'm just so annoyed with ants.
Hmm. Fascinating. Well, back to the whole propaganda world. My wife and I both saw a Facebook reel where it was telling parents not to say good job. And so I know somebody paid for that message to be promoted because her and I are nowhere near the same algorithm. And this also reminds me of the phrase turn on, tune in, drop out. And with the toxic masculinity thing, it's all to dumb down a generation, because a weak person is going to consume more of their weak, air quotes, art. And also, the weak person is not going to resist, because that's a thing that's always going on, especially, I guess, with the government, is that they're pushing you a little further into your hole so that you're, one, less likely to resist, two, less like you have less demands of them because you're in your place.
So, what do you think that not saying a good job to your kid is promoting?
Uh, you
Like
mean
a
other
weaker
than,
kid, or
Complacency.
yeah? Well, one, I think, who were these people, and like, you haven't shown why you can provide advice on parenting. You might not even have a kid, and
yeah, I've noticed that from people that don't have kids. Sometimes
yeah,
they
um, but I think,
espouse.
I mean,
So what?
a person that has never heard "good job" in their life, what would they be like? They would probably be self-deprecating or
Miserable.
just depressed. Yeah, like, everything I do is bad, right?
Well, you could say. I'm just thinking of the worst thing to say would be "good job," but you could do better, and just keep saying that.
Mm.
That
Well, they were
But
promoting to say things like, "I liked how you did such and such," and that's probably where they're getting at, is to, I don't know, maybe be more detailed into it. But I don't know, my kid, because she watches Mickey Mouse, she already has picked up that to say, like, hot dog and give thumbs up, that these are good things. And for a young age, because this is also like, we don't want to overcomplicate things for kids. Their brains are developing, so you basically just want to be on the 49-51% of good and bad. So it's like, is this a good thing? Then good reaction. It doesn't really matter. You can say hot dog, but it's a good reaction, so they
yeah.
get good emotions. They feel that they will keep doing that then.
so I didn't realize this until like piecing it together off of what you said. I've seen a, I don't know if it was a video or an article or whatever, of a parent and how they're supposed to react to a child's art. Like, you're not supposed to tell your kid that this is like the best picture they've ever done and like put it on the fridge and whatnot. You're supposed to ask them what they like about it and then like compliment certain things. And apparently the logic is that it teaches them somehow on their own to strive to do better to get your approval. So like it somehow will make them a better artist by not telling them that they're good at what they're doing.
Yeah, I think the misconception there is that, well, one, that they're going to be able to articulate an answer on their own. You articulate the answer, and then they're going to copy it. And so with that, it, like, you said they're going to strive for it on their own. That's another big problem, that we can just, put kids in a situation and they'll just strive to be good, or it's just innate in them. No, you
Yeah,
you
there's so
have to
much
provide
more in the
push.
background that you would have to done to make
Yeah,
it so your
like,
kid
it has to
thinks that they
build
can do
up
something on
to
their own.
that. So the Ben said, when we were talking about the Death Star national tragedy, that people like the rebels because it looks cool. And I'm saying weak people like the idea of let it burn because it's easy and it's more exciting than let's continue to do routine maintenance for this foreseeable future.
Well, I think I was saying something before about like a throwaway culture. Maybe not.
Mm.
Maybe I didn't. But I think we've progressively more and more just everybody wants to throw everything away and get the new hotness, and just like the old ways, the old way. Like anything old, they don't want. They don't want an old phone. They don't want an old laptop. They don't want an old house. They don't want old car. Um, so they don't want their old rules. They don't want anything. So it's kind of like almost like being the rebel. I'm like, I want the new hotness. I don't want this old raggedy
Hmm.
government or something. I don't want to work on it. I don't want to put in effort. I just want a new one.
Yeah.
And
but it's also
It's
not that simple. Like you can't just put in a new one. And why do you think it even works? It's not tested.
exactly. So that's why. Oh, I just want a communist socialist government, right? Somebody says that because they view the way government is now isn't working for them. So instead of looking at all the rules, applying all the rules to change it, which there's plenty of, a lot of people are just like, just burn it down, start it again, because that's how I do everything else. So
Yeah.
if somebody sees an old house, oh, there's a lot of problems with that. Can I fix it? Probably, but it's going to take effort. Oh, let's just go over down the street and just build a new one, and then let the old one just die. Um,
Or
oh,
maybe say
my
like, well, why
phone.
can't we just live in the woods? Like I'll just sleep in, like at the homeless tent camp, or yeah, where just a bunch of tents together. So I was like, well, why can't I just live in one of those? So it's like in asking the question, you don't even understand the situation, that living in a tent colony is a lot worse than having your own home where you're safe indoors.
Yeah, but you don't have to work as hard, so why would you do that?
Exact weak people. So last week I read a little Sermon on the Mount, so I figured I'd read more since it's that good, and to continue motivating us to let our light shine forth. I have today Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. Ye are the salt of the earth. And that might be, or that is where that expression comes from, this Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his Saviour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. One
So
thing
I got a random thought with that.
yeah,
It's going to derail your
I mean,
thought.
it's all random thoughts.
So, salt of the earth. This is a positive thing, right?
I don't know. What does it mean? What the salt of the earth?
Well, in this situation, doesn't
Because
it mean that the salt that comes from the earth, because it's a mineral?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm thinking of like you're made from the dust. That's
Yeah,
the
whereas I feel
connection
like
I'm
where the
making.
Flizzo is going to go is the fact that if you were to salt the land, you kill it.
Uh, is
yeah,
that? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's
that's
where I
right.
was going
Yeah,
with
so
that.
Yeah, yeah.
because then the salt of the earth in that
But
case is bad.
but it's also mentioning that the salt have lost his savior, which I'm thinking means like the flavor, the taste. And at one time in history, salt was the most valuable like commodity or just spice in the world, because
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
imagine a
because we didn't
world
have
where you've
ice.
never had salt on your food. Oh well, yeah,
No,
and
like, but
also to
we didn't have ice. It was the only way to
keep
store
preserved
things.
meats.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
you would legit just like put things into pounds of salt.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's a double entendre
like
of
jerky.
lost his savior being like the Christ savior. You've lost your religion, and therefore you'll be trodden underfoot of men.
I don't know. I feel like in this they're referencing the fact that salt is a mineral that you get from the earth, and that's what people are, is a large or massive thing that you can, I guess, cultivate.
Yeah, sounds about
A
right.
valuable commodity.
So moving forward, I'm not going to get into a debate about the moon landing, but would encourage people to look at some behind the scene footage of the original Star Wars and how they made miniatures look real, and then watch footage of the lunar capsule taking off from the moon. The movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway mentioned. So Matthew McConaughey's daughter says to him that they were taught in school the US faked the moon landing. And this is how propaganda works. Whether or not you believe it, the idea is still in your head. And so it softens people up to accept the idea later on in the future.
So
Oh,
you're saying all of the media that's putting out that the moon landing, it was probably fake, is kind of opening people up. Because I mean, before,
Well, it
I know in the
happens in
'90s, if
bits.
you thought the moon landing was fake, everybody thought you were absolutely insane.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even
Um,
5 years ago. But
yeah.
also, with mentioning the lunar capsule videos, you won't be watching any of the footage from the original Apollo 11 moon landing because NASA has admitted to taping over that footage. So that's no longer available to anybody on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, you put that VCR thing in, and your favorite episode of I Love Lucy comes on. You just hit record.
Yeah,
It happens to the best of us. NASA
NASA's
exactly.
is
just
right.
recording over
Like
moon
we just
landings with I Love Lucy.
some
I mean, that's fair. That was a really popular thing. So, like, you wouldn't want to.
Lucy.
Yeah, you can't get
Yeah, you wouldn't
enough
want to
with
miss an
Desi
episode.
Arnaz, man.
You can't. You
Yeah,
can't
like,
turn on Nick at Night forever. So governments
Well,
put
certainly not in the '70s.
yeah governments put messages in these billion-dollar movies like Interstellar, and it's one of the reasons that China is so selective about the movies they allow in. Like they don't allow the mention of Taiwan, and that molds the Chinese brain that Taiwan doesn't exist. In fact, Interstellar, they showed the Earth from space, and it had Taiwan on the Earth. So they said, "You got to edit that. We're not releasing that." So, in the current war in the Middle East and the pandemic happening in election years is not a coincidence. And at this point, people might call me a conspiracy theorist, but what is the conspiracy? That humans can be manipulated? I showed you the propaganda book, and in my younger years, I've practiced pickup artistry. They have that down to a science, to where I say this, she says that. It's reproducible, which is more than anyone can say about most of what is being published in the name of science today.
So with the election year thing, you see it all the time with like gas prices. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll start creeping up. Like right now, they're all gas prices are just creeping up for they say whatever reasons, and then right around election is when they'll either spike or they'll drop dramatically depending on like who I guess the oil producers want to win or who it looks like there's going to win, and
Mm-hmm.
it happens like all the time. Like that's I'm sure that's a conspiracy theory now, but I've always noticed that during election years, gas prices just like wildly fluctuate to give like I guess the incumbent a chance or to make him seem like he can't manage the economy. It's like, oh, you're paying like 3 times as much for gas now. Don't vote for this guy.
Yeah.
Um,
And part of the creating weak citizens is that they have the memory of a goldfish, that you can do things like that, creep up the gas price and then just drop it. And they only think about what is happening now. And
and
it's,
then you'll see somebody post a meme or like a picture. It's like gas prices before this person was elected and gas prices after. And it's two different things. It's like, well, that person doesn't control that. So,
Mhm.
so why, the president really doesn't control that, or like Congress could to a certain degree, but it hinges on so many people's votes. So like that's influencing the people to a certain extent. Everybody knows that the U.S. loves oil, so
Yeah. But with
that's
the
an
uh
easy
the
easy
the
target.
Simpsons reference of just don't look is similar to like voting with your wallet. If you see something like this going on, don't partake in it. But you said people love their oil.
Oil and convenience. So like, there's
But that's
always
because they're
issues with
weak.
people. Always have issues with Walmart, and they
Mm,
have issues with Amazon all the time. You're like, oh, they do this and do that. They don't pay people enough. There's too long of lines, and yet they still shop there.
yeah, they're still the most popular, biggest companies.
Yeah, and then Target, there was a big thing with Target about uh, they had weird clothing or something like that. that was like last year or 2 years ago, and so many people were like, "Oh, I'm boycotting Target. I'll never shop there again." And then give it
And
a
then,
year,
Yeah.
yeah,
like,
goldfish
oh,
memory.
oh, they're selling Stanley cups. I think I'll buy a Stanley cup.
Which, yeah, which is just another sort of propaganda thing of like the association with a winner. I'm holding the Stanley Cup.
Oh, by the way, you should look up the guy. I forgot his name. But the guy who did the Stanley Cups also did Crocs.
Oh, well,
So
good
Crocs was just
for
like,
him.
the loser brand of like the people of Walmart
Mm-hmm.
shoe wear, and then he was just like, hey, just let's make unique exclusives, and people are gonna love them.
I think
So
convenience and throwaway shoes,
yeah,
Crocs.
so
For
then
Well,
history, I
the fun thing about
yeah.
Crocs is the movie Idiocracy. That's the shoe they wear in the movie because before the Crocs actually was a big company, the guys making the movie were trying to find like the dumbest shoe people would wear, and like they're like found this little company and they're like, oh, can we use your shoe in our movie? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And then Crocs blew up, like not because
Mm.
of that movie, but like it kind
But
of art imitated life, life imitated art sort of situation.
that whole story could also be made up as part of propaganda, and it was just like
That's true too.
promoting Crocs and saying like
Because yeah, it didn't come out until
you're
after the
going to
fact.
be
So
these stupid people, so these are what you're going to wear. And I say that the story could be made up because it turned out, if you ever heard the Sylvester Stallone writing Rocky, we wouldn't give the right or the script of Rocky unless he starred in it, and so that's why it was
yeah,
supposed to be this underdog story. But that was never the case. They liked him as the role, but they made up this story and they promoted this story because it promoted the movie. And that's just history. And so history, some Henry David Thoreau, civil disobedience. I quarrel not with far off foes, but with those who, near at home, cooperate with and do the bidding of those far away, and without whom the latter would be harmless. So, like, I'm not quarreling with China, but I am quarreling with John Cena, who is apologizing in Mandarin about mentioning Taiwan. And then he goes on to in that Suicide Squad movie to play Mr. America, which no thank you, Mr. Cena. Anyway, I've got some 24 for you guys. Let's do some math. And
oh shoot, I didn't do any prep on this.
the numbers are 9, 5, 5, 1. And we can see here that the 9 has a little red dot, so that way we know what is up and what is down.
how does that tell us that?
I don't know. The 6 didn't have a red dot.
Oh,
So I got it there. So you take 9 minus 5, which gives you 4, and then 5 plus 1, which is 6, and then 4 times 6 is 24.
Bravo.
I had to use a calculator. You're right, though. Flizzo's so
There's
right. There's zero way I can do this in my head for some reason. Like
You're allowed to use
you,
calculators. I
I
don't
know,
know
but like
where that rule
I
got
feel like the whole point
started.
of all this is we're supposed to be all like, oh, let's like basic math and like learn. But no, apparently
yeah,
once on the spot, you're just like,
it's supposed to be a basic math thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, I was introduced to this game in 5th grade. So,
I'm just thinking of somebody watching this like 15 years from now and looking at me and just shaking their head like,
well, they'll
you didn't
certainly
get
be
that in
doing
two
that.
seconds.
Anyway, everything I've said today is where you get internet commenters, people who have heard a million lies that can no longer speak truth. You guys got anything else?
Oh,
So are
that
you
just sounds
saying
like you're trying to
commenters
get
are?
people to comment on your videos now. You're just like, I'm gonna make a
I mean,
whole episode just to see how angry I could make people.
no, I don't know. Like, I started talking about propaganda, and then there's all this stuff I need to let out before I can even have a conversation. So it's like, oh, do you know about Edward Bernays? So if you don't, then we're not going to be able to see eye to eye when we talk about the weather, even or
He made that
current
sauce that you
events.
put on poached eggs.
Be sure to
Hollandaise?
follow CU3 Scott on all social media, my website, Drawing My Life Away. Flizzo, did you have anything you wanted to promote?
Stay in school.
Amen. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Jesus.